Hey, howdy, hey everybody, Scott here, and today we're talking about another plant, plantain, the Plantago genus of plantain, and any of the species are going to work here. I cover so many plants, I'm starting to lose track of which ones I've talked about, and I feel like I must have gone over plantain maybe a couple of times already, but it's a really good one. So let's look back at it. And plus, we get new people in the group, or new people to, if you're watching on YouTube, coming by every once in a while. So this is a really good one. This is one that grows a lot of places around the world, and it's very useful. So it's worth revisiting if we haven't talked about it in a while. Now, when I say plantain, I'm not talking about the banana plantain. Actually, the banana plantain isn't exactly a banana either. So let's get rid of that picture. I'm talking about a plant sometimes called ribwort that's in the Plantago genus. It's a common yard weed. And for our edible and medicinal purposes, you can really use any of the species of this. They're all pretty interchangeable. There are two that are more well known, but let's not even get into that. So let's talk medicinal properties first. They're vulnerary. That means they're wound healing. They stimulate the body's healing and repair processes. They're also expectorant to help you get that gunk out of your lungs. Demulcent, which means they're soothing. They are anti-inflammatory. Astringent means that they can help pull excess moisture out of an area. And they're diuretic, so they help your body expel excess water. And they're antimicrobial. And the seed husks are a bulk laxative. In fact, one of the species of this plant is used, or at least was used, I think it's still used, to make Metamucil or well, one of those products. Internally, they're mainly used as a food. Oh well, I mean, just eat the plant. The plant is the medicine, so just eat the plant. I mean, you can prepare them as pills or powders. Some will say that they lose effectiveness when they're dried, or rather that they don't hold their potency for nearly as long when dried. And I'm not 100% sure. I usually, where I live, we don't spend much of the year without fresh plantain leaves. So I have not kept any dried for long enough to test that. So maybe not. I'm not sure. Um, so mainly when I'm going to take it internally, I do it as food. But you can make powders, you can make infusions and teas. That's all fine. Heat kind of beats the plant up a little bit, but do whatever works for you. Externally, two of the more common uses would be as a poultice, which is it's just mashed up plant parts and just slapped onto a affected area, or as a salve or lotion or ointment, any of those kind of things. This plant is great for stings. That's sort of I guess one of its claims to fame is that you put it on bee stings or bug bites and it takes the pain away. Let's talk about safety and dosage. There are no reported side effects or drug interactions. It doesn't mean that there aren't any, but there are none reported. And this is a really widely used herb, so you can feel confident that this is a pretty safe plant. It's very widely used in herbal medicine. And it's also a nutritive plant. It doesn't have a strong, like chemically active property. It doesn't go in and start pushing people around. So it can be consumed in a pretty good quantity, just as you would any food. Now, if you want to go with these, dosage is kind of silly. Really, I shouldn't even say dosage. I don't think the FDA likes that, but I'm going to say it in a just informative sense of this is the quantity and frequency that some people enjoy taking these things at. As a tincture, 2 to 3 milliliters 3 times a day is effective for a lot of people. And then as an infusion, you can pour a cup of the boiling water over about 2 teaspoons of the dried herb, let that sit for about 10 minutes or so, and drink that about 3 times a day. Of course, the usage will depend on what you want to happen. If you're trying to do something inside of your body, consuming it internally is going to be better. If you're trying to treat a wasp sting, externally is going to be a lot faster and more direct. This is also a good plant to use in lotions. You can put it in there. Lotions are similar applications, salves and stuff. And it's really good for cuts, stings, bites, bruises. You can even use it on hemorrhoids because of the astringent and anti-inflammatory type of effects. Really, it's really good for anything that's happening at like skin level or just under, because it will absorb through there. It's has an affinity for that type of thing. For food uses, I always say plantain does not have a bad flavor. There's just so much of it. Just like onion is a good flavor, but you don't typically just take a bite out of an onion, right? So, plantain is best when you mix it with other foods. Say salads. Mostly people say salads. I think that it's better if you mix it in with a savory or creamy type of dish. Um, I think that the flavors of plantain are bitter type plants will fit with those savory dishes, and the creamy dishes kind of bind it and make it not so strong. So theoretically, every part of the plant would be edible, but we don't eat every part of the plant because it's just so dadgum tough. The seed stalk, for example, you're not going to chew that thing up. There's nothing toxic about it, but oh my goodness, it's like eating a rope. And on that note, it can be used for cordage. If you're, kind of crafty and you want to work with such things, you could cut a few of those and start playing around with it, see what you come up with. The young leaves are the very best to eat. The old leaves are still edible. They haven't lost their nutrition. They haven't become poisonous, but they're just so dadgum tough. It's the veins in them, the ribs, and there's a couple of strategies. You could try to peel out the veins. I think that's a lot of extra work and not really worth it. Um, but I guess it depends on how picky a texture eater you are. The other strategy that I think works a little better is just cutting across the veins and slicing it real thin. Um, that way, any of the fibers are already pretty small. That's up to you though. And you can pick one of the stalks and just chew on the seed heads as you're outside walking around doing your thing. Anything that's too tough to chew up, you can spit that back out, and you can get some good nutrition and some soothing, mucilage kind of goop from there. So how do you identify a member of the plantain genus, the Plantago genus? Pretty easily, as it turns out. They grow in a basal rosette of leaves. That's a pretty common thing. That just means that the leaves are just at ground level, and they're well. I'm not sure. The leaves are all basal. I don't know if they strictly grow in a rosette. Some of these species definitely grow in a circle. Some of the others are a little more like a messy haircut, and they just kind of come out where they come out. But they're all at ground level. The leaves are very grass-like. The shape can vary. Some of them will be thin. Some will be very oval, depending on the species, and then they can be in between. I think there's at least one species that's a little toothy, but maybe don't quote me on that. And the leaf veins are always parallel with this plant. It has a very tough stalk that will grow out with a seed spike or a flower spike up there at the top. And it's not a very showy bloom. You can see in the picture there, the bottom picture, that's what they look like. Sometimes they're fuzzier than that, but that's the basic look. And you can find some of the different species in different environments. For example, the narrow-leafed plantains you're more likely going to find out in a field somewhere where it's dry and it's sunny and hot. And then you'll find the broader leaf plantains in a shadier, more moist area, say under a tree in your yard, or maybe right by the water spout where it leaks a little bit and drips down on the ground and stays moist. And that's where you can look them up. They should be pretty easy to propagate too. If you find some of the seeds, just bring them home and stick them in some dirt, and they'll come up in a year or whenever they get ready, because wild plants come up when they're ready. And you can bring those into your yard. Last year was the first year that we had a broadleaf plantain volunteer itself into my yard, and I was so happy. I didn't. I think I might have picked one leaf off of it, but I really wanted it to grow so that it could develop and spread there. It's a really good plant. I think if you give it a try, you're really going to like it, especially if you live around mosquitoes, or you have trouble with wasps and you get stings and bites frequently. It's a really nice plant to have handy, so you grab a leaf. The easiest way is to make a spit poultice. You don't have to have any fancy stuff. Grab a leaf, chew it up a little bit, mix it with your saliva, get it all nice and gross, and then slap it down on the sting or the bite and hold it there. You can get a Band-Aid and hold it on, and it'll take the sting right out. It's really nice. So take the itch out. I've used it on cuts and such, and you would think, your mouth saliva, that would be, gross and germy, but it has that antimicrobial property. Probably best if you have the person you're going to put it on, if you have that person do the chewing, so that way it's at least their own germs. But it has that antimicrobial property, which helps out a lot there. And yeah, give this one a try. You will not be disappointed with plantain. It's an excellent plant. And that brings me up to my shameless plug for my Patreon page. Do you want some more bonus information? Do you want to learn about more plants and more medicines and just some extra fun stuff? Why not swing over to patreon.com/foragersguide and you can see that kind of stuff. The benefits start at just $1 per month. I mean, you can pay more money if you want to. I'll be perfectly happy to take your money. But just $1 gets you actually a whole lot of stuff. You can swing by if you're interested in that kind of thing and give it a look. Now, until next time, I want you to keep your eyes out for plants, especially plantain, and for zombies, and I wish you happy foraging. Bye.